So all we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna hand off back and forth and show you what this huge presentation would be. The idea of this was if people were curious about what we do throughout the year, they could come. There's been quite a bit of negative publicity around people not exactly knowing what happens in schools or what the laws are or what statutes are. So we figured this would be a good chance to open it up and let people see what we do on a daily basis. So we're just gonna run down a whole bunch of stuff that's happened. High reliability schools is our current, what you could call our strategic plan that we follow. We have another strategic plan that was done by Teamworks over the last year and a half. It's kind of fallen off a little bit. High reliability schools we've been using for 7 years or so, I believe. It involves levels. And so high reliability schools right now, we are certified in levels 1 and 2 as of November. Level 1 is a safe and collaborative learning environment. We do allow with that. Level 2 is effective teaching in every classroom, which is all about our instructional model that we use. We use the New Art and Science of Teaching by Bob Marzano, and that is 43 elements in 3 design areas in 10 different categories that we use to make sure that our instruction in the classroom is good. That's what we base our evaluation model on. It's everything, really everything we do from top to bottom when we teach. We are also currently working on level 3, which is a guaranteed and viable curriculum, which means we are building proficiency scales for our students and follow, so our parents can know what the expected outcome of every class is. These are put into instructional cycles, which are kind of like a map of what you go through every year, what the big standards are from the state, and we're building those now, so we should actually be looking at possibly level 3 certified within a year or two. And level 4 is a little more difficult. That's standards-based reporting and grading, and I don't know if the community is ready for that. Letter grades go away, GPAs go away, test scores don't mean as much. You're based actually on how each individual student does. And then there's also a magical 5th level, which is when you finish, like if you're in 3rd grade, but you finish all the 3rd grade standards, you don't wait for the next year, you just move forward. And start
you're
going
saying 3rd grade classroom then?
There's a lot of organization that has to happen. Level 5 schools are very rare. The biggest one right now is Westminster Schools, which I believe is in Colorado.
Just outside Denver.
Just outside Denver. They have got a K-12 system where they're running level 5 HRS, which means you could also be a 1st grader who's really good at math, which means you're in 3rd and 4th grade math, but you don't read as well, and you could be doing kindergarten math, or kindergarten reading. And they just switch it, and it's super individualized as you go through. It's really cool. Their new book that's coming out, that Sean and I got an advanced copy of, has a lot of how level 5 would work. And it's really cool, but I don't see large public schools being able to pull this off. It would be massive changes to the structure. So we're gonna aim for level 3 in the next couple years. Just what level 3 is gonna give us is, as parents, as teachers, as students, they will know exactly what they need to know. And then as we'll get into here a little bit, we start talking multi-tiered system supports. We will know how well our kids are doing and how much more we have to do as teachers to make sure that at least 80% of our kids are getting it.
And how well means the content they're learning, or
Yep.
how well
So
they're
proficiency scales have 4, 3, 2, and 1. 1 means it's remedial work, it needs to be done. 2 is basic vocabulary that you need to know. 3 is the proficiency or the standard, meeting the standard, and 4 is above and beyond. So 80% of our students need to be at 3 or above on that proficiency scale in order to move forward with the entire class. And there are, if you look at our, I don't know if it's public yet, we have an instructional cycle website that's ready to pop up as soon as they're done, where you can actually go in there and click on every proficiency scale that your kid is going to have throughout the year. And it really shows you what the curriculum is that they're going to be required to learn in order to move forward. It's just putting everything out there up front on what the expectations are, so there's never a question on what it is. This is where I turn it over to the nerdery, Mr. Gaston.
This is mine.
Yeah.
So,
if you just want to shoot over here so you're a little bit in frame.
okay. So I think one of the things that we hear in the community a lot is attendance. I mean, the school board, I think, made it one of their target issues this year was, what does our attendance look like? I think it's probably one of the most pressing concerns staff-wise is, when are our kids not in class? The biggest change that's probably occurred is when we think of the kids not in class, it is not the old I'm not coming to school, I'm skipping. It's, I'm in your school, but I'm in your hallway, and I'm just gonna walk around for 6 to 8 hours. So it's been something that we've been working on pretty much nonstop 3 years. And when we actually pulled the data, it was a really nice surprise to see we're down absences 30% in the last 2 years. In fact, I shared that with our truancy officer today, and she's like, where did you pull that from? Because I don't think that's true. And I said, well, the data works that way, but then as we started talking about it, I think that's a sign of how much our interventions are in play, because what she thought of immediately was that 10% of kids. Because she's like, but I just saw so-and-so and so-and-so, and then we went through and we're like, oh, in the top 10%, in the top 10%. And so I think that's one of those signs where it's still slow progress, but we're making progress. And the fact that when we think of kids not being in class, we're nabbing the 10% that make up almost half of our absences. So we're making great progress. I think the part that I was really happy about, 430 kids have missed 8 or fewer hours all year. So you come to think about that, we focus on that group, we focus a lot on the 10%, but we have a lot of kids coming and doing the right thing, they're in class every day, that type of stuff.
And that's at the high school 8 through 12.
Yep. So, you can play the same game when it comes to tardies, and the fact that we did Operation Be on Time started, 2 years now.
2 years ago.
If you go back to MEA 2022, we did a hall census. I took our notes, and we had in between 100 to 150 kids in the hallway after the bell. And we basically started putting in things. We started doing hall sweeps. So if you've heard your kid talk about the hall sweeps, come over to the PA, teachers lock your doors, we bring them into a room. We started doing that on a regular basis. What we've seen, tardies are down, and they're concentrated in 60 kids, which almost all also fall into that 10% who miss 40% of our classes. So the big celebration there is we did a calculation called student hours. So basically, every hour there's 1,163 opportunities for someone to be on time. 92% of those times the kids are. So, it's frustrating to us as teachers to have to start class and have it interrupted with tardies. It's frustrating for us as administrators to see kids in the hallways. But at the end of the day, 92% of the time, our kids are right there in their seats, ready to go when it's time. So we are quick to be caught on the tiny percent, even though that's the narrative sometimes gets out there. But our kids are pretty good at that compliance side of what we need on that. Some of the things we've had to use, like I said, talk to truancy today. Jenny Habana is our truancy officer. She's very heavily involved in that 10%, getting them through. The thing that's sort of a narrative that our community needs to hear is we're fortunate to even have truancy. Many of the counties have abandoned it. They just not going to make it into an issue. They're going to leave it entirely up to the schools and the parents. And that's a tough combination, because if a kid gets to high school and they have attendance problems, it's either 1, because the parent has not been heavily involved, or 2, the parent has heard a lot already. And it's a tough battle to fight after doing it for 7, 8, 9 years. Our other tool that we've used, I think, 3 times this year, is we just invite the parent in. Walk them class to class. Kids love it to have mom walk with them class to class. So we've offered it up 3 times. We've offered up more than that, but we've had 3 takers. I think one mom made it through 2 hours. One mom, it was this last year. She parked herself down in the office during class, but she was there to meet her son at that bell every time and walk him to his next class and stay outside till the bell. And we do see some success from that, more from the other kids. I think it's more than anything than the actual kid involved. But that's, again, this is one of our areas of focus, and we're seeing progress, which is a great thing. Since this was a battle that every public school has fought since COVID, really.
Yeah. When we go to Big 9 meetings with other principals, we're not allowed to talk about attendance or tardies, because we're doing better than most, you could say.
I have the other fun ones.
Do you have this one as well?
Yeah, I have all the fun topics. But again, we're going to celebrate this one too, because I think this is the other thing I hear from people in the community. if I'm gonna go into a bathroom, my kid's gonna see, 20 kids vaping and there's 2 others fighting. That's what happens every passing period. That's the story we get told by ask out there. 8th grade parents walking around for the fair, Amy, I had a couple of parents like, how many fights is my kid gonna have to see next year? We are 1,200 kids. There are times where things happen, but overall our discipline numbers are pretty strong. So we're down 28% just on common referrals. Violent incidents down almost 1/3. And then that chemical usage side, this has been a big change for us. We've seen a 42% drop in that. Now, we had a good conversation, I think full transparency. We asked the question, are we having less usage or are kids getting better at hiding it? I think that's a fair question. What we really come down to is we think, based upon what we can tell, overall usage across the building seems to be down. The prevalence of the kids using is higher. So what we're seeing is lots of repeat offenders. So it wasn't, in the past it was, maybe you had a kid once, a few kids twice. We're getting kids on their 3rd, 4th, 5th incident this year. So it's just now you could also argue part of that is the legalization of a new product, and that's what we've also seen. We used to be about, what do you think, Chris, probably 80% nicotine, 20% marijuana, it's about 50-50 now. And based upon some work that Dave Hughes did SRO-wise while he was over here one day, incredibly easy to buy marijuana vapes. Asks you, are you 18? Are you 21? And you check yes, and then it sends them to you. So there you go. Like, it's not a shock that that's going to happen more often. But big thing we're seeing discipline-wise is it's always been our number one disruption, defiance stuff. So your typical, when you think of like a kid getting sent to the office, that's still our number one thing that we deal with. The one in the asterisk, violent incidents. I just told you they're down. I told you now that fights are up, but I put asterisks there because we've changed how we code things. So our most common, or some of our most common fights now are slap fights and body boxing. So the kids actually like go in to a bathroom together as a group and they slap each other or punch each other in the stomach. Last year we called that physical contact. We chose not to declare it a fight. This year with some new guidance, also working with Adam Kahn, working with the county attorney's office, they're now saying like, no, we're going to charge that just like you're fighting, even though you agreed to show up and slap each other in the face because that sounds like fun. Now the county is saying, no, that's a crime. You can't hit each other in public. So
they say that. Have you seen the end result of that?
Anyone go to like trial or anything yet?
Yeah, have you seen anybody?
Adam's been finally able to charge. So the guidance initially was, nope, that's 2 private parties entering into a space and agreeing to slap each other. You can't charge them. And after a while, Adam was like, seriously, they're in a public bathroom in our school. And the county just...
So they're not getting charged with the assault, it's disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
Right.
Because disorderly conduct is about the other people. Yeah, we have not really hit court yet with these because they're 6 to 8 months out.
Yeah.
But they will all appear in front of a judge.
Yeah, and I was saying, and the
So-
vast majority defer out. They plead guilty
Yeah.
because...
They plead guilty or take the diversion. Whatever.
One of the only saving graces of our children choosing to do this is they have to record it for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And inevitably someone wants to share that with us. So when we get that random airdrop as we walk through the school and you open it and it's 2 kids slapping each other and it's just like, just thought you might want to see this. And so yeah. Again, we already talked chemical usage. I think one of the biggest things that we've had it's truly still an untapped tool is Melissa Boussette is our chemical dependency counselor. She's starting to get into some of our classrooms just to work with some of the populations that are more connected to the chemical usage. She does individual meetings with kids. I say untapped because, as we know, I mean, we're fighting an addiction problem with our kids. Not everyone with an addiction problem is ready to sit down with someone. But in the last year that she's been employed, the number of kids willing to sit down and start having that conversation of just, I want to stop. I really do, but I go 2 days and then, it's still in my house or my friends have it and I'm back on it and then I feel guilty and I want to stop and they go through that whole cycle. To have an adult trained in that, it's a great tool for us to be able to say, okay, you got caught with this, not only are we going to do the traditional penalties, but now you have an appointment waiting for you when you come back to sit down with Melissa and you're gonna start meeting with her. So that's been fantastic. The social work has been a huge help because a lot of these issues they can work through. The other thing we've done is we have changed consequences. And I think you're gonna talk a little bit about that.
A little bit later.
We've just sort of changed where some of our priorities have been over the last year.
Tomorrow's podcast, we're recording tomorrow, we'll release on Wednesday, will be a video podcast, and Con and Ms. Bassett are gonna sit down with me, and we're gonna show parents what a vape looks like, how the kids hide them, what to look for. There's all kinds of different things that you can get, and so we will be, tomorrow's podcast will be a video podcast. You can also go in and look at what, I mean, it's one of those things that if you don't know what to look for, who knows what you got. Now we're going to trade off to our testing coordinator, Ms. Thomas.
So yeah, we just finished up all the MCA testing, and I know a lot of times at the board meetings or in the newspaper, once those numbers get released and how the schools are doing on their MCA tests, there's a lot of discussion about the opt-out. So this is the opt-out information from this year. I can't release any scores yet or anything because that has to be released in the fall. But, you know, we had 20 parents in 8th grade sign the form, 46 in 10th grade and 31 in 11th grade. So I didn't put the numbers up here. It was about a dozen kids then refused to take it. So that makes up the 84% in 8th grade that did take it. So you have some numbers.
Yeah, these are the total numbers of
past
kids that
I
have
didn't
tested
have
in the last 4 years. And so you can kind of see, in last year for spring of 2024, we did a big Stop the Opt campaign to see if we could get more kids to take it. And it bumped it up like 7 or 8. It didn't do a lot. There is still a large opt-out. You can really see it in that grade 11 math. Because our grade 11 math scores are not representative of our student body because they already took the ACT, they're done testing, so they get to the MCAs and the ACTs are like, what, the week later or the week before, and they're just done. And so they opt out, and who's opting out? Usually our higher flyers. You can see this year was actually our highest ACT number at 149, and we'll just take a look at what this looks like. So I can't share results with you because they're embargoed until the fall, so somehow these arrows got on the grid. I have no idea how they got there, but you can see our
Wait up the year.
You can't share it, but you have the information?
We get the scores back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, so that you can make some decisions.
But
Right,
it's
so we
not,
can
it's
take
not
a look at
delineated,
that
so it
for-
can't
it's
tell
for-
us what standards we're missing. It just gives us scores.
It's for instructional
So I can
purposes.
tell you that in 24 we are 33 in the, and that these are just the MCA scores. There's longer scores, but these are percent proficient. 33% were proficient last year, 24 and 23. I can tell you we tick up a little bit in English and we tick up a little bit in math in grade 8. Now some of the kids will still either take it, and that'll change. That's why we can't really give scores yet, because there's still some chances to take it. Science, they have not released any information yet because it's still a new test. So we tick up there. With grade 10, there's a little tick up in the English. And then grade 11, that is a thicker arrow. There is a fairly large drop in the MCA 11th grade math. The one results I can show you for averages are ACT, because they are out and kids can see them already. With the uptick in students, we had our scores drop quite a bit. We went from a 20.56 in the composite to an 18.83. You can see math dropped, science dropped, STEM dropped, English dropped, and reading dropped the least, but it still dropped a little bit. This could be, we went up 25 more kids. More kids are taking it. And the more kids that take it, you kind of bring back down to that average, but it's not what we want to see. We also had a pretty high-flying group the previous year. You had a lot of kids that are seniors now who were much more academic and book-oriented and a little more responsible. I don't know if you guys see that in the difference. And so our goal was to get to 40% in 2025. We actually dropped from 34% to 21.5%. Using a 23 as the college readiness benchmark for ACT. So we have work to do in this. We've had some good discussions already when I share this information. One of the discussions I had recently was we started pulling some individual data when we got it, and it's like, let's take a look at our 4.0 students, straight A's. What do their ACTs look like? Guys, they're the high teens. There's a girl with there's a person with a 4.0 grade point average that got a 16 on the ACT. What are we grading? Compliance. Kids are good at giving the teacher what they want. Now, across the board, not true. But in general, grades inflate. And so this is where standards-based grading comes in. We really want to be able to look at standards and see how well students are doing, not by, do I turn my stuff in on time? Am I listening to the teacher? Am I doing extra credit to make sure my grade is good? But are we actually teaching what we want to teach? So those difficult discussions have started in quite a few departments. Questions on testing? You get a little early peek there at the testing. You guys have any questions? It's the first time you'll see the scores as well, so just taking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we had that discussion before of like students who failing.
Yep.
Do those get scored?
Yep.
Is there a way that you
Nope.
can say you don't get to be scored?
Nope.
No,
And-
even if they finish in like less than 5 minutes, that
It's
score
good
is
score.
part of our
And
data.
there's no way to track it. I mean, we know.
We
because
can see how
we
long
see
it takes them.
We can go in and look, it's like this. And so the 8th graders whose parents forgot to fill out the sheet or are not gonna be
Or
nasty and
parents
just refuse
won't
and say
fill out
no,
the sheet.
then they just
They're
go in
like,
and go click, 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 and then draw on a sheet of paper for 2 hours. Because that's what they do. The good part about this year, and I'll give Johanna credit for the scheduling, is we did them all in 3 days. 3 mornings, in fact. We started first hour, got it done by the end of Flex, and so I wouldn't say burned, we utilized 2.5 hours of class time 3 times in MCA's were over. Instead of what we used to do weeks at a time, and we would go morning and afternoon sessions for break the test into parts and do all this stuff, we got it down to 3 half days, which is nice to do because that gets more instructional time and still gives us a reflection of what we see. So the Minnesota MTSS is the Minnesota Multi-Tiered System of Supports. This is a new program that every school in the state must follow. And what it is it's screening students to make sure that we are doing what we can to meet the needs of those who may not be succeeding. Our screening is composed of a couple parts. We use some MCA scores, but mostly we use FAST data. I don't know what FAST stands for. It's on my chart of acronyms. There's 131 acronyms that we use, so I don't know what FAST means, but FastBridge is the company that gives the assessment, and it gives you whether you are at, or whether you're good, high risk, low risk, or I don't know what the other one is, but we use those to assign academic supports to our students. The academic interventions, we pull them out of an elective or right now it's 8th grade geography, it's only done in 8th grade, and it's all done in reading. And so we try to get them back to grade level in reading. And that's where our focus has been this year. And we have 10 sections, 8 sections, 8 to 10 sections of students, 5 or 6 kids who come in and they're grouped by ability, and we try to do our best to catch them up in reading the best we can. We have one part-time teacher and one paraeducator who are running those interventions under previously the MTSS coordinator, now me. So we'll get some feedback on that in the next couple weeks as they start finishing up some of their projects. What you see up here, this triangle, we were talking about.
You lost it.
It's still here.
Well, while you're figuring that out, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you're doing reading intervention.
Yep.
Are you finding, so the kids that are at least in 9th grade, because I have a 9th grader, were taught in elementary school the reading curriculum, which they now have discovered was not, the curriculum itself wasn't full enough. So are you finding that those kids aren't reading as well as maybe previous grades because of the poor foundation? Or are you finding that the reading is just amongst other things?
You know, so I was principal at an elementary, and so I wouldn't say that curriculum was a poor curriculum.
Right.
Because we also filled it in with a program called really great reading and a phonics program to hit those things. It was it's a research-based curriculum. Think what we're finding now, and a lot of it has to do with the READ Act. The READ Act also says what within the state you can and can't use. So for whatever reason, they're saying some really good curriculums are not on the list in the state of Minnesota. So there's a lot of different approaches to reading. I think as time goes on, more research comes to play on what the best reading. So I wouldn't say that your kids got poor reading curriculum tools. I would say that a lot more was supplemented. This is a more robust program that they've recently started. In my opinion, I don't think it was a poor reading curriculum, and it was very well research based. I think it's some of the READ Act stuff that comes into play with what you can and can't use. And unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the wit and wisdom, because I'm not there anymore. But that's kind of my take on it. I wouldn't be disappointed in what you saw, but a lot of times when we start a new curriculum at the elementary level, because there's a lot of training that goes into that with the teachers, and there's a lot of training that's going in with the READ Act at the elementary level, and coming up this way too. A lot of times you see it tick up.
I guess I was under the impression that it wasn't a poor curriculum. I was under the impression that the students who got the extra, that had the teachers who were really focusing on some of the stuff that they knew to be supplemental, to be advantageous, that they got a fuller picture. But then some of our students who were unavailable or were not, had a new teacher who didn't have that background to know to also supplement with, that may have missed pieces. And as we know, it's building blocks, right?
Sure.
I was just really curious as to whether or not that was a foundational.
Yeah.
I can tell you that most of the people we see in the academic interventions are also in for behavioral interventions. Those two things seem to pair up almost perfectly across the board. In fact, the behavior intervention that we have going is a referral system, mostly 8th and 9th grade boys. And Sean and I had a discussion not too long ago, is like, are we getting any bang for our buck? Because they're 8th and 9th grade boys. Their maturity level's not good, is a good way to put it. And so our behavioral interventions, we're working hard. We have a Tiger support team that we use. We get referrals from different staff members. We sit down and we have an interview with the kid. We pick a teacher that they say they get along with. We do check in, check out. That's one intervention method we use. The other one, our check and connect, is the other one that we trained the entire staff in a few weeks ago. So we're hoping to roll into next fall with a lot of these interventions in place. And what we're seeing is the better readers are also better students in general. So I don't know if we can say it was curriculum, but curriculum, it changes all the time. Oh, you're good. Curriculum changes all the time. Now when we talk about tiered intervention, so we talk about tier 1, 2, and 3. This is the best graphic I've found to show it. Tier 1 intervention is not intervention per se, it's good classroom instruction. These are some of my better tier 1 interventions. It's right here. Because they're giving good quality lessons in the classroom. Now, like we said earlier, one of the transitions as we move into level 3 HRS is that we want to make sure that 80% of our students are meeting the level 3 on the proficiency scale, and that's the green, 80%. And then we move to a tier 2 intervention, which might be a pull-out, which might be some extra lessons, like, hey, I noticed that you didn't quite get this. Can you come in during flex and I'll do this? Or, can I have an extra hour to do this? That's a tier 2. And then tier 3 is very intensive intervention where I know we got to do something else, and then that could lead to like a special education referral. And so that's the system that we're using. Almost all of what we want to do with the multi-tiered system of supports is going to happen in the regular classroom. Making sure that we're just doing great things educationally so kids get what they need to learn. And so that's what MTSS is. And to tell you the truth, I had to explain this to our staff because it's one of these shiny new words that's out there that the state decided it's going to be really awesome, And then we're training 60 people for 2 hours every 2 weeks to do this big thing. And so that's what MTSS is. And we just learned about that a couple weeks ago ourselves when I sat down and did that presentation. A big part of high school is athletics. So I had Dave pull some numbers and what we look like in terms of athletic participation. He does not have activities pulled yet, so we didn't get the music, the FFA, the drama, the activities aren't in here. This is just athletics. And you can see that we've done okay, but we'd really like to bump those numbers up. And if you look at the middle school numbers are even lower. We just haven't had programs at the middle level. And we know that kids that are connected to school do better in school. So what we really want to try to do is get these numbers going forward, because when a kid or students actively participate in a sport or an activity, we know that they do better. And so we really want to try to bump these numbers up. That's the part of Mr. Cates being added as a middle school activities director. We're offering some different programs. We're going to get track back in 6th and 7th grade to make sure that we're doing this kind of thing. We just want kids to participate in as much as they can.
So we just went to 6th grade orientation. And
Okay.
there are not a lot of opportunities for a 6th
Yep.
grade female.
Yep,
There's not a lot of options for a 6th grader who doesn't want to participate in sports.
yep.
I'm just
Yeah.
referencing sports, because that's what we're talking about.
So almost everything in this town is run in the clubs. And if you're not in it, you don't know how to get into it. So that's why they're trying to expand those opportunities at the school level. And that's part of what Harrison's job will be moving forward, is to expand that into the 6th grade.
Right,
Try
but they
to get
just
it.
advertise that there's nothing.
He was in track, that just started. I think this is their second year for sixth
Yeah,
grade
I
track.
think so.
So,
Something like that. So, but I'll definitely pass that on to
I've already
David
talked to
Harrison.
I'm just supporting your data.
Yep, and we know that because that's what we're trying to do. And I don't know, I mean, Sean, you did baseball. I followed basketball a little bit. It does not seem like the clubs and the schools collaborate enough. The clubs don't want the varsity coach in there. The varsity coaches, for some part, just are trying to work with the clubs, but don't tell me how to run my program kind of thing. And we really got to work together better. We need to fix that relationship. We need to work cooperatively and not competitively, which seems like a lot of what we're doing now. And I know that's one of Dave's big points, is to try to get this done. Because when you go to I hate to bring up where I live, but I live in Owatonna. My kids went through the system. I sat on that. I was on the basketball board. I was on the golf booster board. It's supportive all the way through, and those varsity coaches sit in the room with you at every monthly meeting telling, in 4th grade basketball, here's the skills I want you to work on. And guess what? The programs are successful because it's the same story all the way through. And I know Corey's helped out with, even Johanna's husband has helped out with baseball, but there's some different stuff that goes on. We just love to bring it together. And I know Dave's working on that, and it's a tough nut to crack.
I think it's hard to, I talk to, sometimes we have a hard time getting our kids on our team in high school. And you've got the two sides of either they get burnt out because they've been playing clubs since 2nd grade, or they didn't play club, and now they're afraid to even go out for the team because all those guys have been playing clubs in 2nd grade, and I'm not going out.
And you can see the numbers that I think 3 years ago did we go free?
Yeah.
There has not been a jump in participation numbers by letting kids play for free. We're just losing money. That Ed Foundation writes a check for that every year to cover our kids who say they can't do it. But you saw like this year, that's an 8% drop in fall sports. So we've got to. It was a great try. I just don't know if it's working the way we intended.
Ever consider doing adaptive sports?
It's been talked about.
The adaptive sports side, there's a lot of hurdles the high school league puts in. And so, and Dave Langer coming from St. Cloud, they had adaptive sports that were very successful, so he's very open to it. It seems though that it's one of those conversations where you tell the high school league we were going to run adaptive soccer. And they come back with, here's the 35 things you have to have done before your program can start. And a lot of them are relatively expensive. Some of them are also just hard for our community. I mean, some of them are the training people have to have. I know he was looking, I can't remember, I think it might have, I can't remember if it was softball or soccer. He was looking at one of them as an adaptive, and we would struggle finding the people that meet the checklist to say we can start the program, and the initial cost was so high that he's like, I want to do it, but what do we give up? And he's like, and that's an unfair question to ask for either party of, but it's still a discussion that he's trying to work through the high school league of like, if you're not in the cities, what can an adaptive program look like when we don't have the same type of resources available outstate? when
Even
it
in the
comes to
cities,
it?
you're talking 4 or 5 districts are going together
Sure.
Yeah.
to conglomerate into these teams. That, hey, we won state, and you're 17 towns in the metro. And
Well, Town has a few adaptive.
Yep.
not
they do
school.
floor hockey. Yeah, they floor hockey's
Oh,
through
it's
school. Yep.
Okay, I thought it was.
You know, Watan is one of those towns that have people to write checks and make it happen. There's also, what's it called, Unified now is the new one that's out there. It's not adaptive, it's Unified. It's special ed and general ed students working together to compete, but you can't do basketball and unified basketball. So guess what? Your kids who are playing basketball are the ones you need to teach to have that, but you can't because that counts as your sport, so you can't do this one. So there's some hurdles there as well. I would love to see that program go. And get this, that would help get this going as well. And I think we have some fantastic special ed, teachers would want to see it, but they're tired. We are running, we have big class sizes, big case manager numbers, not as big as other Big 9 schools. I'm going to put that out there as we've managed to keep it down, but we need more adult support because it's people get tired.
And
They need home time.
I'm going to beat the drum on one of
Okay.
these things. We're not the only community in the world where this happens, but for as long as I've been connected to the coaching and things like that, the thing we heard at every convention, number one reason coaches are leaving, parent-coach interaction. And what we hear from parents, and they're frustrated, we get it. It's hard to watch what's going on with your kid and not feel that emotion. But it's always, well, go and find someone else. There's got to be someone better out there. We're averaging around an applicant per coaching opening, and there are many that have 0. For every, for example, we're doing a wrestling search right now. There's 5. For every one like that, we're not going to have any. And
Our wrestling
so-
program's a little bit known.
Yeah.
So to have 5 applicants for the Section 1 champions 2 years in a row, to have 5 applicants.
So I feel like there's like two requests there as we talk as a community. Like, one, if you're a parent and you're that passionate about your child's sport, maybe you want to give up some time to do it, because there's always that desire to have some help, whether it be at middle school where we need, that's probably one of their biggest problems getting sports running, is they don't have them. And then the second side is just that idea of, as Chris just said too, one of the things Dave just was lamenting to us was, I don't have teachers applying.
Sure.
And there is a lot of leverage and power both ways to have a teacher as a coach, both from the standpoint of, I don't know how many times I got to help another teacher out by being able to visit with that student. Hey, so are you giving Bracky a hard time? Because, I hope that's not happening, because, we may need to talk about what that reflects on our program and whether that means you're going to play right now, because we have to meet character code before we can play. But then also just the flip side of being in a school to recruit kids to a sport and to push them towards another sport. So we're
And
struggling.
And the reality that teachers have work hours that coincide with the availability
What,
of coach.
100%, yes.
Right?
100%, yeah.
That-
It's like the system was designed to somewhat work that way, and we're just not. I can't tell you, being involved in interviews now for 4 years, I can think probably on one hand how many people have actually said in the middle of an interview, what kind of extracurriculars do you have that I could fill? It's just not being asked anymore. And it used to be something that was sort of asked, like point blank in our interviews, what are you going to do? Because if you're not going to do something, we've got other candidates, and that's just not the reality anymore.
You're back.
So, I think we talked a little bit about PSEO at one of our previous meetings, but This is up there with attendance as being one of the hot button admin topics. So I think I'm going to start just asking, like, what is the vibe of the community right now? PSEO, CIS. I know, Jess, you shared that this was, a little bit about what you've experienced, what you've heard. Your guys' kids are coming in the next couple of years to make that choice. Like, what are your thoughts?
I think there's a huge thing about each individual kid too. And of course, with Sophie having focus in 8th grade, and obviously what 9th and 10th grade looked like, and the way she's wondered anyway, like PSEO was the only way that we got her to graduate. She was not wanting to come here. But in addition to that, then, she has said since then that she really thinks the PSEO, the scheduling, like the rigor, all of that has made a huge difference. Of course, she's at St. Olaf, so that's a high rigor school, and she's taking freshman, junior, and senior classes, I mean, and she said it has made a huge difference, and she's really glad she did PSEO. When she was doing PSEO, her son was all about, I'm gonna do that. Now that he's in freshman year, he's looking at it as like, you're not gonna hold me to that, right? And I think he will be staying in the school. I think he'll be probably looking at more of the CIS classes. But I think it's an individual kiddo issue. A lot of these kids, PSEO, all of those kids go there, they want to be there. So if you're somebody that needs, versus having the distraction, having because even in the advanced classes at high school, you still have kiddos that have to distract. I mean, it's better than the other classes, but it's still some.
And I ask because, without a doubt, the trend is very significant to us in that the PSEO numbers are exploding.
Right.
So you go back 3 years ago, I think we, as a district, paid for about 139 PSEO credits, and last year we paid for 400 and some.
Do you think that the North Star stuff will change that at all? Like,
So I hope it does. I'm hoping a lot of things that change in the community make us reevaluate PSEO. The whole Riverland scholarship thing right now is a big one for us. And that last line about what does the future look like. I'm hoping that our students realize that not every kid has to be a college student at junior year. And now that Riverland's offering a scholarship, I can be a high school student. I can gain all my skills. I can go and not still pay. Like, I'm still getting that benefit.
I think some of these kiddos too, like I've talked to a couple of kiddos that they're looking at, oh, I'm in this 4-year school now and I only get to be here 2 years. I mean, some people can be 4 years at St. Olaf, because they transfer the credits, but they still have to be there 4 years. And I think it'd be great for her to have that experience. And I do think maybe some of these kids, maybe they can graduate in 2 years and be out in the world. But I'm also talking to kids who, especially Dalton kids, they're looking at, oh, I'm gonna graduate in 2 years from this school, and no one wants to hire me because I only got one little interview or one little internship, and I didn't have any experiences, and so they're now talking about, well, now I'm gonna go to grad school instead. So that's not gonna save them any money in the long run to do that.
So for my 9th grader, his desire to do this is to get, he's not gonna be in the highest math class when he's, right? He could probably pull off the academics. He's tired of being in classes where people are acting dumb. He's tired of being with the boys that are in his grade that continue to disrupt his learning environment. So if he can find a way to not be in courses with that, when academically he's not going to be in the highest calculus class when he's a senior, right?
Right.
So for him, it's more of how do I get away from these other kids that have for years disrupted his learning environment.
And I think that's a narrative our counselors hear a lot. because you're getting to work with the counselors a lot for registration and scheduling. They came in February, we were scheduling and said, we need to have a meeting. Like, we're over 100 kids who have taken the paperwork for PSEO. Like, this is a concern, and that is some of the common narrative is, you know, I want a different classroom environment. I'm tired of this. I do think one of the things that we're trying to also remind the kids, you know, hopefully some of said friends mature out. Hopefully there is some different divergence in that you go and take your CIS course, that kid's not in the CIS course, that's a different setting. The other thing we're also, you know, on the flip side, we've had a couple PSEO kids reach out because they're saying, you know, I'm glad I have that. I don't have that anymore, but now I have no connection to the school. So, you know, the seniors are getting ready to do all their gathering, and I haven't been in the building other than here and there. And so I didn't get to do link crew, and that hurts us as a school too, because those are some of our good kids not getting to do that. So I think that one of the things we've been trying to educate people in the process a little bit too is, and I don't think this group has as much of this deficit in knowledge, but we've had a lot of kids that have said, like, well, the PSEO credit's worth more than the CIS. And we're like, actually, you took it from the same institution. They're both Riverland credits, at least for the majority of our kids. So you're not gaining anything there. One of the things that really brought us this year on some of our PSEO kids is the support. They never met their teacher. It's an online class. And so when they started to struggle, we've had more kids withdraw from PSEO classes and take Fs this year than we've ever had. And that's like something we're trying to talk to the juniors is, for every one of them who's ready for that time management challenge, who's ready to be pushed by that, we have the kid that needs that teacher in the room saying, you know the material, let's get the work done, and they don't have it. And in fact, one of the withdrawals that I got to chat with the other day just said, like, I never met my professor. Like, I never saw him. It was an online class. He posted 30 to second to minute videos explaining the assignments, and then we watched other instructional videos. And that was PSEO class. And so I think that support side, especially the lack of counselor support, you know, many of them don't even know they have an advisor at the college that's who they're supposed to check with. I think that's been a big thing. So we're trying to do some education on that side of, you know, yes, you can be frustrated at the classroom. I think we're having discussions about how we can make sure that the students who are getting in to our CIS classes, that we are pushing them and putting them in an environment to do that. The last one that really comes up is our funding. So we paid about $400,000 this year in PSEO. And the way it works that we get double whammy for a PSEO student. So the state pays us about $5,100, I think it's $5,175 a student. We pay tuition, and then we have to give 35% of what's left over to the PSEO institution also. And so, you know, meeting with Paul Durbon business-wise, he's like, help me understand this, because not only are we losing the tuition, which we are paying for a credit, the kid's getting that, but we're losing 35% of their leftover funding. And he's like, that hurts us a lot. You know, a kid who takes 3 of PSEO classes, like, that's a pain for them. If they're coming back into the building, I mean, we're still losing that 35%, even if they take half-time classes or something.
You know, Alden has just like in PSEO also. Have you heard it? I don't know if you guys speak to them.
Yep, and the stories we hear from almost every school is pretty similar to the stories you guys have told. My kids want to be away from classmates that they've struggled with over the years. You know, occasionally, more in the small schools, Jess, we'll hear the, like, they didn't offer this. You know, Alden doesn't have
They don't have, yeah.
Spanish 3 or 4, so I'm taking PSEO Spanish so I can practice that. We don't have that problem. I mean, I got the 2 AP courses on there, we've got 10 CIS, we're gonna add 2 more CIS next year. I mean, we've got science, math, social studies, foreign languages, up to a level where they can get college credit, they take a test. We're up to 3 CIS ag courses now. So I mean, we've got options for kids to take here. CIS welding. So I think what we're just trying to figure out is that central theme of PSEO, how can we address some of those issues, but also say we get it. we can't deny that there are going to be disruptive kids, but is this the best thing for you in 2 years when you go and you're now expected to be taking junior level courses and you maybe never met a college professor because you've taken online?
And
So-
those online classes, I think that's the biggest thing that they need to remind those kiddos is some kids can do online classes great, and some can't. We saw that with COVID, but
Joanna's shaking her head. She was online principal for a while, so she knows exactly.
some of them, they're like, I want to do that. That's not good.
And the other piece with PSEO, I had a kid come officer today, my lockdown browser won't work, I can't take my college quiz. It's already not my problem. It has to be my answer. We're technically not allowed to support students taking a PSEO class because the funding is to the college. And so she goes, what do? I said, call your professor. Call the tech person at the college. This is, and you know, our tech people are like, I mean, how much should I put into this? I said, no, technically. If the college wants you to use a certain browser, they should be giving you a computer.
Yeah, and they're right there, so I mean, if they really needed to walk across campus.
And so we're running into more issues like that where we're actually supporting the students in PSEO even though we're not by statute supposed to.
Yeah, so this, I think the future for this will be very interesting. It's going to be statewide. It's everywhere. But I know our district leadership and our board is asking a lot of questions of what can we do? Like, because we can't sustain losing 100 kids to PSEO every year.
Has this been in one of the newsletter, TED Talk thing type things, explaining this to some degree?
I don't think so.
And I wonder if there'd be value there just because when people, if like financially they can't afford it, but they can, if you go to high school, you can get a college credit, like, and it's paid for and it's free and like, then you have it when you leave. I mean,
Add it to the agenda.
and I think if it's, some people don't come in to know the college and the classroom or college and school, the courses of what they offer, nor do you know that the money goes to Riverland and not here. And I mean, it all comes down to the bottom dollar where you wonder why things are broken, doesn't work, when the funding goes next door. And
Well, what about legitimately offering, yes, you're gonna have 5 parents, right? But legitimately offering a presentation to explain the difference
We do
prior
that.
to registration.
Yeah, so by law, we have to do it.
Well, they don't typically do them until like 9th and 10th grade.
Yeah.
Or
And-
later, yeah, I think it's.
And this is, and maybe this is bad strategic planning on our part, but one of the things that's sort of like catch-22 is the more we publicize
Yeah,
PSEO and say,
Yeah.
come and learn the difference between PSEO and CIS, the question we've asked is, are we just creating more PSEO students?
Sure.
And we ran into this problem even, our counselors used to very much walk kids through the contract that they're required to sign. We met with Riverland and told them, we're going to stop that, because if a kid is telling us they're ready to go into college as a junior, they should probably be able to navigate your website to figure out how to register for a class. And so, again, that's one of those, the state says we have to do this. We will meet that requirement. We used to do more. We've pulled back just to say that's man hours that our counselors are using that they could support a kid here in the building, which I hate saying that because these are still our students, and that's one of the things that drives our counselors crazy is they go off to Riverland, they go off to Northwestern, they're still our students. We want them to graduate, and when they fail, it's dropped back on our counselors, and they're devastated by that of like, I can't help this kid now. We have a senior who is very much in doubt whether he's going to walk as a PSEO kid because he failed one of the required graduation requirements. And that counselor found out
Late.
yeah, like 2 weeks ago, that this kid was going to be failing the English class they needed. And it's like they're struggling and trying to pick up the piece because that's our student. That's a kid from our community that we want to graduate, but the system is designed that way.
How many PSEO students are homeschool students who are using that as an option instead of?
We don't even know. We don't.
I'd say the only ones I can tell you are the ones who would also work through us for like band, and that's 3.
But don't you pay the bill?
For
Not the homeschool.
Homeschool is not part of our district.
Well, how does it pay for then? If a kid does PSEO and a homeschool?
my understanding, at least the brief description that their financial guy gave us, is that they will issue to the state
Oh.
and ask for reimbursement to the state.
So your
Now,
numbers are.
where's that money come from? Back from our community in other ways, but.
Yeah, oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Do you think, though, too, I think one good thing that they should really make sure they understand is, I've heard kiddos that say, like, I'm gonna do PSEO, but I'm still gonna do sports. And I don't wanna do online, and I'm like, none of that works together. If you wanna do classes in school and do PSEO, you do PSEO online, because it's gonna be really rare that you're gonna get a PSEO class that works and you still get to them in class sometimes. And it's gonna be really rare also that you're gonna also then not commit how you're gonna not.
So once again, it might be possible, but we can't tell them not to.
I understand, but I think they should make sure that they
And I'll-
understand that,
Yep.
that if they think they're gonna go online or go in person, if
And
you're
I'll,
not gonna go in person and be in sports
Yep.
and be here
and I'll take it a step further. If you want to stay CIS, we're going to work as hard as possible to get you into everything you want. Like, I know these two ladies expect me to get the people in the pubs that also want to take all the CIS classes and take band. And so, I spend my time in the fall mapping out, if I'm a kid and I want to take these 5 classes and these 2 extras, how do I get in? And I think last year we had 2 kids not get into everything they wanted. If you're PSEO, that's sort of mercy of what happens. Like, your PSEO econ class you need might correspond with 8th hour. Well, you're not in your book now because the institution decided that's when econ is. So, that's something our counselors also try to bring up a lot is our building will work as much as possible to get you into your advanced classes if you take
Our
PSEO.
master schedule revolves around the highest flyers.
yeah, I think it's gonna happen. Yeah, in order to be in person in PCO, you have to basically divorce yourself from high school.
And I think there's value in saying like, because you're in the building, you get to do link through, you get to do.
Yes.
And there's also been a lot of things that you're gonna put on your college resume or college application that you're doing. Because I would say there was a lot of things that didn't, there was no involvement. So like, if you don't have involvement, luckily we have 4-H. But if you don't have any community involvement and you don't have school involvement, it makes a difference on some of the college applications. So that's a huge thing.
Online Academy will be run out of this school next year, is what they're telling us, as I will be the principal in charge of that. It's currently taught by ALC staff. Our proposal for next year is to also have it taught by the ALC staff. Our current numbers are 44 students, 7 of those being seniors. We'll walk with our seniors. We're hoping with the with the new way we're going to do it, we could expand it to possibly 60 or 80 students. The online option has been good for some people who have school anxiety, can't get here. But it's also been good for us for after your second fight, you're up for expulsion unless you would like to take this other option, which is our online option. And that keeps kids in school. Instead of expulsions are expensive, expulsions are hard to do, but some kids aren't ready to be around other kids. And so having our online academy has been a lifesaver for some of them.
44 students in what grades?
7 through 12.
12. It also keeps them from going to the Minnesota Virtual
Virtual
Academy as well. And
And these are funded as a regular student. We get the dollars to do that. So, that was just a little update that we'll be running that out of here next year.
but it's not an ALC program, it's a
Nope.
traditional
So will the
credit.
counselors
Yeah.
from here be supporting them also, or will it be
We don't know.
fun details for next year?
They eliminated a position at the district level. Jeff Halverson resigned his position, was going back into the private sector, and so they did not refill that position. Sean is becoming our career and technical education advisor. I am becoming the online principal, and Johanna's going to go to part-time ALC principal. So they took a job at the district level and converted it into more responsibility for the 3 of us. So all those questions, excellent questions. I'm waiting to hear them myself. So we'll find out. Our Flex program is our advisory program that we added 3 years ago. It's organized by grade level. Most teachers are going to stay the same for next year. There was a little shift 2 years ago when we moved it to during lunch. We are back to having it rocking during third period. It happens between second hour and third hour. It is much better. Passes are not allowed during it, so the hallways are mostly clear, and if someone's in the hall, I know that they're not supposed to be. There's friendly competitions that go on. There's a set of slides throughout the week that people follow. It's a relationship building, so every kid can have one adult in the building to make sure to have a good relationship with. Very few disciplinary issues during flex. There are some. We've made some adaptations. These two kids can't be together anymore. The biggest one we look at is as kids move toward that senior year, some go online, some move, some drop out. We can't have flexes of 4 to 5 kids. So some of the sophomore and junior ones end up getting combined together. And so we have a teacher switch there. But we are trying to get it so you have that one adult when you enter an 8th grade, you have the same person for all 5 years. And it's been going really well, and Sean makes that happen with the schedule. Way easier than doing it over lunches. And the kids don't skip flex to go to lunch. That was the biggest piece. So.
I love that my kiddo has a teacher that he unlikely is ever going to take a class from.
Yep.
He really likes that teacher.
Who's he got?
Like Steve.
There you go. Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Tiger Pride started this year. I don't know if you've heard of PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Intervention Strategies. PBIS is a swear word to some teachers, so we didn't call it that because they've heard of these programs that happen and they don't want it to be a part of it. So we just called it Tiger Pride. Sean was instrumental in getting that going along with Jess Hatland, and I believe there was some success coaches involved as well in a large group. And it's just celebrating the positives more than giving attention for the negatives. It's celebrating the positives. If you look out there, you see Tiger written on the in tape on the wall with all the pictures. That's our people who are doing positive awards before. Get it like a Tiger positive. I started that. Now we've connected it to Tiger. Tiger stands for Sean. Teamwork, integrity, grit,
engagement, respect.
And so as they give these awards out, they label them as one of those. We had a big, at the finals we did the table surfing. For our final, we also gave away some positive awards at that. People got to have a pizza party with someone. We had a golf cart parked in our lunchroom for a while that never actually delivered anyone to classes, but that was supposed to be one of them. Spring came before we did anything. There's some awards that people have donated and that we bought, that they pull their name out of the box and then they get a bigger reward. So Tiger Pride is all about turning it in, celebrating the positive things that students do.
Now, was
And
that
adults.
giant spreadsheet we looked at once upon a time to see which
Yep.
kid got from
Yep.
which teacher?
Yep.
Like everybody's supposed to get one?
So those are,
Three,
yep,
I can't
at least one
remember.
positive call or email, yeah. So this is a little above and beyond that.
Do they only get counted if they turn them in?
Because they get the slip to put in the box when they leave. So. The CPOP, which is more acronyms, Cell Phone Acceptable Use Protocol is what that's called. It went fine this year with the stoplights. We added this year about halfway through, but we sent our 8th graders, we bought the wall pockets, and every 8th grader had to put their phone in the pocket. We had very few people refuse. We had very few people try to trick us. The biggest thing we ran into is in some of those 8th grade classes, someone would walk by and go, "Hey Siri, call 911," and it would send the whole thing calling 911. A couple times, it didn't happen much. So we are going to be moving to this in the fall of 2025 in every one of our classrooms. We're going to have pockets out, and students will not have phones in their hand during the classes. So we are in the next step. Did you see that Iowa's governor just signed the ban, statewide ban, to eliminate cell phones from classrooms? So this is where we're going. This is the next step. Social media in schools, like you'll have your Tiger Unite app. Mine has been undownloaded from my phone because I never used it. We use something called Thrill Share on the other side that pushes it out to your Tigers Unite app. We were getting good feedback that the elementaries are using it well. I don't think our numbers are very good at the high school because we have enough going on with our Facebook, Instagram accounts, with the website, with the letters I send out. Let me tell you what's not good for kids. TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. Almost all of our bully reports are because of something that happened online. It's not happening face-to-face. It's all electronic now. And so anything you can do to keep children from using them would be really great. And we try to teach respectable use, but it's just not good. But we will continue to use Facebook and Instagram to try to reach people because that's where people look for stuff. We did our screen-free pledge this week. I don't think anyone picked up a single card from the office. You talk to the kids about it, it's like, hey, go screen free next week. They're like, no, they can't do it. They can't do it. To tell you the truth, I didn't pick up the pledge card either, because if I don't do my connections in my Wordle every morning, I don't know how to get on that. So we got that. But leading into that, we talk about bullying. Almost all of it's online. So how can they report it to us? Because once again, we can't solve problems we don't know about. And so the biggest thing we do is we get in there and a parent comes in mad, they sit down at my desk, this has been going on for 6 months. What do you mean? Who did they report it to? Well, you guys never do anything, so they didn't report it. So let me tell you what happens when you get a bully report. And the good parts and the bad parts. The good part is we get an idea of where we can look for stuff, especially if you give us a location, a time, and a place. Over half of our cameras have microphones on them now in the building. Every bathroom has a camera sitting above it that has a microphone recording 24/7. And those are kept for about 6 weeks, I believe. So if something happened even a month ago and you can tell me when it was, I can go back and listen to the conversation that took place between those two kids. So when we get a report, usually what we'll want to do if the report comes in from a student or a parent is we'll want to bring the student in and just ask them, hey, you don't need, no one's going to know you're telling me. I got cameras everywhere. I got teachers everywhere. We don't have to use your name. What happened? And we look it up. We go to the cameras, we take a look. And then we bring the person that's bringing it in. And that's where we usually have our first issue. Bullying has a very specific definition at the state level. So the minute I say something to Johanna and Johanna responds to me, it's no longer a bullying situation. Now we have conflict. And it takes two to have conflict. Bullying is usually a one-sided issue. So we have to treat it differently by statute because there's bullying laws and then there's the normal conflict that we work through. And so if it's truly bullying and I have a group of people going after someone, now I have to do it a little differently. Now I do have to progress through our bullying policy and make sure I'm doing everything right. If it's conflict, the first thing I ask is, can we get the two of you together? And it's usually, no, I don't like that person. Okay. Then we talk about respect and what happens there. Now, if you give me a bully report, I'm never going to be able to come back to you and tell you what I did to the other kid. Because that's FERPA. And it's the Federal Education Record Protection. I can't give you information about another person's kid. Now, where the ball may have been dropped locally is usually what I do, is do this. You come to me and tell me your kid's getting bullied. I find out that they are, then I deal with the kid. And you come back and say, you didn't do anything. I'm like, you're right. I can't tell you what I did. I did something. I do stuff every day. I sit in my office. Well, what'd you do? I can't tell you what I did to that kid. Now, let's say your kid bullied this kid. Here's what I would do with your kid, and I tell them what I would do with that kid. Most people pick up and go, oh, he's telling me what may have happened, even though I can't tell you what happened. But I can give you examples of what would happen there. So that's usually how it happens. Now, if you read the law differently, you can't say anything. But that's not quite how the law works. And so I can never report back to you on exactly what happened to that kid. And that's where we get to look like we don't do anything. But I can tell you, and these guys can probably tell you, we act on every report we get, whether it's in the online bully reports, we've had a lot more fake ones coming in than real ones lately. They found the link on the website. And now, if they're mad at someone, there's vaping in the back. Because now they know we're going to pull them and search them. And so now we have to weigh everything out, too, because they figured out this is a good way to get at someone I'm having trouble with. And so
Somebody always has to ruin it.
it just makes it really fun for us. And, we talked about all those positive things, but we spend so much of our time on that 10%. It's hard, and it's really hard to celebrate the positive stuff.
Can you go back? So
Yes.
if you go to Johanna and you truly bully her,
Mm-hmm.
and Johanna says, knock it off, leave me alone.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's
But
different.
if she's like, I'm sick of this, whap,
Or-
then now
or-
we have conflict.
Or usually it's, hey, I'm going to get you, and then Johanna jumps on the social media say, he said he's going to get me, everybody. Let's meet him out back after
Okay, thank you.
and it ramps up back and forth because then people have their teams and it gets together, and then Johanna calls, well, you bullied me, and then the other kid says, well, you had 3 people meet me out back and try to jump me, that's the term, tried to jump me last night.
Okay.
Now I don't have the power imbalance isn't there anymore, and I need to have a power imbalance for it to be bullying because you just created more power. and that's conflict.
Right, but our kids are still allowed to say, leave me
Yes.
alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
And if they do that, leave me alone, and they go and they tell an adult, that kid just said this to me in the hallway, then we got it and we can get it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's mostly what we do. Now, the other thing we run into with this is the laws changed twice now for the Title IX sexual harassment stuff. We went from Trump, Biden took 3 years to get his through, so we went for a year, and now we're back to Trump again. So we're back to 2 ago, and the rules have changed a little bit there. But anything sexual harassment is not confidential. If you want to move forward with a sexual harassment case, you have to name your victim, and the victim gets to know who said it. And we explain all that to you if it ever happens. So that's a tough one. And that's not really a bullying situation, that's the next level up. And believe it or not, kids in high school say really dumb stuff about sexual stuff. They just do.
So surprising.
And it's getting younger. I've heard some stories from principals that I'm like, they said what? And it's because the sexualization of the media is just everywhere. The vocabulary is crazy. So disciplinary procedures, we can talk about what we do for discipline. Everything is in the student handbook, but our student handbook does not contain any specific, if you are caught stealing, you are out for 5 days. If you are caught fighting, you are out for 10 days. Because we have individual discretion to be able to work with kids. Otherwise, we would have to do everything the same. I've been in districts that have everything there, and it really hurts your chances where a kid honestly made a mistake. And now I got to suspend him for 10 days because it was this. We use progressive discipline, which means like the first time, I'll talk about we'll go to the chemical violations. We used to suspend for drugs 10 days. It was 5 for fighting, 10 for drugs. That was the Mark Gross-Klaus policy about suspensions. If you fight in the school, you are out for 5 days. If you use drugs in the school, you're out for 10. If I kicked every kid out who used marijuana for 10 days, I'd have some pretty empty hallways of those 10. And because it's so easy to get. So now we're using our chemical health counselor. We're not sending them home anymore. They do 2 days of ISS. Because you know what they're going to do at home? They're going to play Fortnite and smoke weed. And a lot of them would just probably do it in our face just to get sent home. So now they stay in school. And they sit in our little ISS room. We bring the work to them. So those are the kind of things that we've changed. Attendance issues, once again, we don't really want to suspend for attendance because the point is to get you here. But when you're one of those people who have skipped all 8 hours and now you're grabbing other people from classrooms to wander the building, I got to send you home. I just can't have you here anymore. And the physical altercations, you get the slap boxing, it's still fighting to us. Because the person standing outside that bathroom listening to it doesn't know that you're screwing around. You're creating fear in that other student sitting there. That's disorderly conduct. And so that's why we've moved forward with that. Those are the big changes for this year. And the discipline's all there. All of it says up to 10 days of suspension, up to 10 days. 10 days is our limit from the state. We rarely go 10. Our only 10 now is if we ask you to come to the office, we search for something, and you refuse and walk out the door, that's an automatic 10-day suspension because I don't know what you had. And it's not a safe environment for our students, teachers, or anybody. And so that is the strict 10-day right now. And that, anything that's a 5th-degree assault, if you actually assaulted someone in the building, that's a 10. And we usually say 10 days pending further investigation. What we usually do there is we'll give them 5. If the parent comes in with the kid on day 6, we'll let them back in so we can have a discussion. If the parent refuses to do a reentry, we'll go to full 10 and then bring them back. And then if it happens again, then we start the expulsionary process. So that's what discipline looks like. You want this one?
All passes. So, if you are on social media, you might have seen that we created some new limits in hall passes. One of the things that we got feedback was they had asked why did we start using an app. We're actually on what, year 5 of the app?
Yeah,
So it's actually been here a while. I just had a parent very concerned on that we had bought this app and we're now tracking kids and making them use the app, and it's like we've been using that for, I think Southwest has.
I started it my second year.
So,
What's it called?
E-Hall Pass,
E-Hall Pass.
or securely they changed it.
But you can get it on your Chromebook.
Chromebook, yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as we move to like the pouches, the kids will still have access on their Chromebook. Kid puts in a pass, it goes to the teacher can okay it on their device, and off they go. So what we did look at though was, okay, we need to crack down a little bit on the number of kids out in the hallway. So we looked specifically at building and individual limits. So there is a limit right now of 15 bathroom passes. And that was where we originally started with 20. And then what we quickly learned after roughly 4 hours was that everyone now had to go to their locker. No one goes to their locker really anymore, but like all of a sudden these locker passes were created. So we limited that to 5. And then everyone needed to go to the water fountain. And so if you look at day 1, we were averaging like 30 water fountain passes a day. And on that first day of the limits, we had over 100 water fountain passes. And so we limited that to 5. So there's now at any given time 30, I believe, active teacher or student-created passes. Now, what is exempted from that? Students who need to go to Target, teachers can okay that pass. Any appointments, social worker, counselor, health office, that's cleared. Any pass actually created by a teacher is also cleared. So those things can keep going, but what we are stopping, or hopefully stopping, is more than 30 kids out at one time, which is roughly 2% of our population. That's why we picked that limit. Also, 8th and 9th graders get 2 passes a day. One of the first parent complaints I got was we arbitrarily picking on our youngest kids. Nope, 8th and 9th graders make up the vast majority of the passes, even though they make up a third of our population. They make up over half the pass usage, and they also make up around 65% of our discipline problems. So it makes the most sense to limit those 2.
Data-driven decision.
Yeah, so it was not random. We have been,
Curious to see if now these 8th and 9th graders, are you going to have 9th and 10th graders? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like,
we've been, you know, I will say unknowingly to the community, we have been restricting passes as part of discipline for a while.
Yeah.
There are kids in the school who the system won't allow to each have a pass at the same time. It literally will pop up and say,
Clarity, yeah.
you will have to wait
Yep.
until your pass goes through. We've limited passes on kids who've restricted them so that when they go to do their pass, it says, come see us in the office, or wait for an escort. We've limited passes. There are kids that can't go to certain rooms. So like, there's always been controlled. This was just a more generalized type approach. Passes are down 25%. So apparently we did not need to use the restroom nearly as much as we asked. The bigger thing for me, and you know, one of the first parent complaints we got was, you know, my kid needs to use it 8 times a day. It's a daughter. It's going to happen. Well, teachers have the discretion to override that. Any teacher pass goes over the 30 pass limit. And so we had some teachers right away. I hope you're okay. You know, this is a female health situation. Yeah, that was written in immediately. Like, that's always your discretion to send someone. Kid with a health problem who needs to use the bathroom, obviously exempted to go. But the bigger thing for us is 110 times fewer per day that teacher stops teaching to walk over and hit the pass button and then go back to teaching. 110 fewer times in and out of the room, that type of thing. The other big thing that happened in week 1 is I think we ended up doing 7 truancy meetings in the first 2 days because why are you out? Where's your pass? Oh, I have my pass. Oh, but you don't because we're already at the limit and I can see the names and you're not one of them. And so let's come on down and talk attendance. So it's been, I don't know, staff-wise, I think it's been,
Yeah, the fewer disruptions is great for class period.
yeah.
It's been awesome.
Complain about it, or the ones that don't understand exactly.
Yeah, we had 3 parent complaints in the first 48 hours. We changed the system, I mean, we made like 6-7 tweaks in the first day of, we started with this many, we added passes, took ones away. Like I said, we limited water fountain. We hadn't thought through that one, locker, things like that. So we've moved things around. You know, I think when we put it in place, we weren't certain what we'd do, if this was permanent or just see what it is. But every week we just keep dropping the number of passes per day. So yeah, so it was 434 on the week before, 434 passes a day, and this week last full week was 323. So again, we're making sure kids are only needing them when they need them, hopefully.
The other funny thing that happened the other day was I went and sat down by the lower locker bathroom all day. I just took my computer down there and sat by it, and no one used the bathrooms. It's like, why does me sitting here stop you from needing to use the restroom? Because they're not using the restrooms. They're using it for other stuff, so.
And they knew you were gonna be there, or they just like?
No, they would come around the corner and see me and just turn around and go the other direction. It's like, what were you doing in there before? So a big piece of what I like is communication. We've added a lot of ways to communicate with students. A lot of follow them our Instagram account now. They're getting it that way. They're terrible at checking email. They are terrible at checking their email. And so we're using Tiger Vision. We're using the ALHS. We're using as many different forms of communication with students as we can, and they still don't get it, which is why we include families in our communication. Now the newsletter that goes out at the first of every month at 10 a.m. always comes out the first of the month at 10 a.m. That goes to you guys and our teaching staff, so you guys get the same information at the same time. It's also on all of our social media sites. It's also on the website. If you go to High School and Handbook, that newsletter is there every month, 10 a.m. on the first of the month. Same with the community. We get out as much as we can. I mean, look at the crowd response to this state of the school address, so everyone can come and see what's going on in our building. They really want to know what's going on.
I actually brought it up. I meet with my coworkers on Monday mornings,
Yep.
and I brought up that there was this thing, and we had such a not spectacularly, wonderfully large amount of people. Really? I'm like, wow. I'm the only person who has a high school student. But
Yeah. But so I'm going to keep trying because I think it's important. And when someone comes back and says, well, I didn't know that, it's like, well, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get this? And I also try not to oversaturate with you. Before Katie sends anything in the office, she will pop into my office and say, is it okay if I send a Blackboard message to the 11th and 12th grade parents about this? Yes. Is it okay if I send this to the 11th grade students so they know this? Yes, because I don't want to flood you with too much. And so always let us know if there's more or less we can do. I think right now we're at a pretty good balance, and I'm always looking for the next thing. There'll be a good podcast tomorrow. It was a pretty good podcast last week, though. My wife said it wasn't deep enough. She's my biggest critic. So she wanted more depth in our mental health one, but the best podcast ratings or the highest number we ever got was Dave talking about why people don't coach. It's still out there in the archives if you want to look at it, because it's what, Sean? We'll just talk bathrooms a little bit because that's the one question we always get asked. We have supervisors outside every one of our bathrooms except the A hallway by the music suite, and that one gets locked except during music classes. All of our bathrooms are now lockable, and so if we see a trend of students using one and we know they're not using the bathroom, we will just lock those bathrooms for the day, and they'll come and say, why is the bathroom locked? And I say, why do you think? You found the vape we had in there? Yeah, I did. So those kind of things happen. We also have expanded single stall options. I believe we are now at 3 options with another option. We have a locked one all the time that a student could use if they need to. So we're trying to do that. It'd be great. Paul Durbon and I walked through our bathrooms the other day and said, how hard would it be to make all of these single stall? And it would be very, very expensive to retrofit bathrooms into all single stall. Every school that's being built now, rarely outside of the gyms do you have anything that's group bathrooms like they have now. It's all gone to a line of lockable doors with the sinks on the opposite wall. There's no gender identification on them. They're just open bays of bathrooms for everybody to use, and it's really easy to just have a supervisor or a camera watch who goes in and out of those doors. So that's where we're going eventually. We do our best for the bathrooms. If you ever get that, my kid doesn't want to use the bathroom, I can walk and show you guys where those single stall ones are, so we can show you that there's some good places for that. Career and Technical Education, CTE it's called, just letting everybody know that our expanded welding lab has been updated and awesome. The school board actually toured it tonight at their 5 o'clock meeting just to take a look at the great work that Jeff Jensen's done in there. We took second overall in the team event at the welding competition last week. They're doing some fantastic work. Our CIS offerings in ag, we were actually ready to add an ag position for next year. Unfortunately, we're cutting $2.4 million from our budget, and so that could not happen. It would be great if we could get that back, because that is an area that we're expanding in, and we could give a lot more classes. We've got the kids that want to take it. We just can't build it at this point. So Senior privilege is ending at the end of the first year. I have about 45 kids right now on a list that aren't allowed to take senior privilege because they're either not passing all their classes, have not been 90% attendance, or have discipline referrals from me. I had one come in this morning and said, I checked my grades, I'm good. I'm like, let me check your attendance. You've missed 94 class periods. You're at about the 80% level, so I think you're done. That's not going to happen. We've had some issues with non-seniors using it. So already there's one next year who does not get senior privileges as a senior because he used it as a junior. So that's what happens. We make choices. Sometimes there's...
Like you did it one day, or?
Oh, no.
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 It was like,
In fact, I believe he was bringing the food into a classroom with his senior friends and sitting down and eating Qdoba in the class. How'd you get that? I don't know. I think he was riding with one of yours. Actually. That's basically what we have. That's the state of the school. Since we were so small, we were able to do questions and discussion as we learned, which is nice.
So senior privilege will continue.
Yes, yeah. I think it's been, actually for those students who, when they found out, that was another fun one to watch on video. I sat down at the pool door one day, and I brought this whole senior class in here. And I said, there are 60 of you not passing classes. You need to graduate. That's not okay. Remember, you have to be passing all your classes for senior privilege. About 2 days later, I sat myself at the pool door, not the hall monitors, and the kids would come around the corner and look at me, and they'd be like, just turn around and walk back down the hall. And guess what? Those 2 kids I saw do that all had passing grades the next day. And so it's been good motivation. At the end of first semester, I went around and delivered. I see that you're failing a couple classes, you can't leave for senior privilege. Well, the teacher didn't put my grade in. I'm like, well, when did you give them the stuff? Like 10 minutes ago. They're probably not going to do that. So it has been motivational. And to tell you the truth, it's really our study halls, letting those seniors go for study halls is saving us FTEs, which is how we do teachers. You know, how many teachers we have. We're saving room. You know, we're saving money. Not having to supervise almost adults who should be able to handle themselves. And the ones who don't want to leave don't have to, but they can sit in the media center and just work or study or sit on their phones, and they're not causing disturbances. Can't do that with my 8th and 9th, 10th grade yet. They're not ready. We would love to have just the commons open for large study halls. We can't with 8th graders. They find their way there. They find a way.
As a parent of a 9th grade boy who has year after year after year heard how difficult that class is, I sure hope that the good kids still.
Yep.
I sure hope that when my kid was a senior, that the 4 good kids that get senior privilege, I mean, I'm exaggerating,
Yeah.
right? But will still be able to.
Yep. And we will. And it's, if anything, I see it expanding. I mean, if we could add juniors with a, 3.0 or above and are on track to graduate kind of thing, if we could add juniors to it, it would just take that much more pressure off of our study hall situation.
Sure.
But it's a slow process, just making sure we do it right. We've learned some stuff. I don't really have a good system other than me digging into the data and finding out who's failing or who. I mean, it was 160 pages of Fs when I printed them the other day. Ouch, guys. Some of you need to pull this together. So
I wonder if that's a contributor to the sports too.
just instead of trying to get grades up, they just don't do it.
Yeah, if just they can't, whatever the reason is for can't, then they just don't because they're putting in the work but then not getting to play. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in that side of academics, so I don't know.
We did see we switched eligibility rules for sports this year. So it used to be you had an F, you sat out 2 weeks, you submitted a grade check. If you were passing everything, you were eligible. We switched it this year to say if you're not on track to graduate, you're not eligible. It doesn't matter if it's been 2 weeks, 1 week, 20 weeks, like you have to get back on track. That being said, to also offset that, Dave Langer told coaches, kids are now exempt from practice on credit recovery nights. And in fact, they are required to go to credit recovery 1 day a week. You will not punish them. There isn't you miss practice, you will send them there and you will make sure they go. And I think we had a little bit of headache at the beginning of some kids who, but I want to play in 2 weeks. Well, you're 6 credits behind. Like, that's why you come here. now go to credit recovery, like, yes, the odds of you playing this season are not high, but at the same time, we saw too many of the, I'm gonna do enough to get back passing, and then I'll live that cycle again next season and go up on my way through, and then till I end up, you know, coming to the ALC staff and asking to be bailed out at the end.
And we've had better numbers at credit recovery this year than we have in the past, and I've been doing that for a long time, and more kids have gotten back on track this year through credit recovery quicker than in the past.
As it relates to credit recovery, and I don't know how accurate this information is because teenagers don't always have accurate information, but my son participated in the spring play, and it's my understanding that the time that rehearsal got shifted because there was at least one, if not two students who needed to attend credit recovery. And as a parent, that was incredibly frustrating.
I have no idea that's the,
I don't know what
I don't
took
know.
place, but.
I don't know what took place with that.
Yeah, that's right, because you can't drive, so. Yeah.
But if it was somebody that they wouldn't have been eligible, because it's a fine arts, they have to have, follow the same
I know that
MSHS,
the
yeah.
entire spring play
Oh.
was set to rehearsals start after school, and the whole thing got shifted to, we're now starting at 4 p.m. because somebody needed, whether or not.
Was the teacher, the credit recovery teacher? I mean, the director? I don't know, I missed.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Right, but now you do, and it's over, and it's
Yeah.
fine. And it was,
Trying to think who leads in the play over. I mean, if the lead's missing.
I can tell you who it is. I can tell you the student, but I'm not going to share that.
Yeah, don't do it with them.
Right, or in front of you too, because that's not fair either, right?
I went to the play, but.
All right. Thanks for coming. Thank you.